Today's episode is brought to you by Schecter Guitar Research, the original custom shop. You probably know Schecter for their hard rock and metal guitars, and they're killer, but they also have a wide range of classic-inspired guitars with modern updates, too. And speaking of classic-inspired guitars, Chris became a Telecaster fan after seeing Pete Townsend playing a Schecter PT model back in the 80s. Now he's a lifelong Tele guy. Use the promo code TalkGuitars15 to save 15% on your purchase from SchecterGuitars.com. Check out Schecter Guitar Research if you're looking for something classic, metal, or otherwise. We'd like to thank our sponsor, iZotope. They have a killer selection of intuitively designed audio plugins and suites to help you with all your audio production needs, like voice, video, podcast, or full production recording sessions, and tons more. Check out the audio repair tool RX11, the mixer plugin Neutron 5, or the powerful Ozone 11 mastering suite. Go to iZotope.com and use the code FRET10 at checkout to save 10%. That's iZotope.com and use the code FRET10 at checkout to save 10%. This episode is presented by DistroKid. DistroKid is the easiest way for musicians to get their music into all the platforms like Amazon, Apple, Tidal, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and more. You also get unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of their earnings. The DistroKid app is super easy to use, so check it out. Just go to distrokid.com/VIP/Talk Guitars to get 30% off. Hey everybody, it's Chris and Rick Talk Guitars, and today we're going to talk about serving the song, whatever that is. Kind of the inspiration was I just finished reading Mike Campbell's biography about his time in the Heartbreakers and the whole history of that band, actually. And Chris, it got Chris to thinking about, we've talked about it before about serving songs, but we thought we'd kind of dig deeper in it, and since it's a deep topic and it's subjective too, so Chris, why don't you start off? Like, what is your interpretation of serving a song, essentially?
Well, before I get into that, I just want to say for our listeners that on this episode, I'm going to sound amazing and Rick's going to sound crappy because he's on his laptop in Martha's Vineyard.
Yes.
And I'm in Seattle on my setup, my regular setup. So I have like a little compression and all that other shit. So that's why it's going to sound a little bit weird. I just want people to know.
Well done.
So, and getting back to your question, I don't know. That's why I started thinking about it. It's like, serve the song. I know what it means to me, but I'm like, it could be pretty subjective, So I just started thinking about it. And I thought that every time I see something referenced a guitar player who serves the song, it's always a guitar player I like. Yeah. And I got thinking, well, maybe that's because I only read articles about guitar players I like. So then I started thinking about what are some ideas of players that don't serve the song in a song or something. And I couldn't really think of anything other than in the 80s, I saw this a lot with guitar players. Back when the pointy headstock thing started going and everybody was a hot guitar player, guitar players would have a solo and they'll just shoehorn it in. So they'd look to shoehorn it in a song. So it actually had nothing to do with the song other than like, I really want to use this thing and it's in this key, so let's put it in there. Or so it seemed. Maybe that wasn't the way. And a pretty famous one for me, which I've kind of changed my tune on because I think it's a great song. And after so much time, it totally fits the song, I think. But back in the day, I thought Jump was ridiculous because it was like a guitar solo with a pop song wrapped around it, because they even stop in the middle of the song and then do this blah, 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 and stop again and come back into the song. Yeah. But I see now, and that is like an example of bombast serving a song because that band is all about bombast. You know what I mean? So that's what it calls for. I mean, they're doing this probably one of the most poppy songs they ever did, very keyboard driven. And there's this, this wanky, like fast, technical solo. And back then for me, I'm like, that just doesn't, you can't just stop a song, stick a solo and then start the song back up again. But I changed my mind. I mean, I think that, that's the whole point is I don't think there's any type of, it's just every song is going to be different. So I don't know what it means really to everybody. And I'm still, hopefully, during this episode, going to figure out what the fuck it means to me. When I think of serving a song, I think of like developing your parts, from the song. You know what I mean? And like not just going, here's the chords, it goes C, G, whatever.
Yeah.
Is like listening to the song, listening to the lyrics, and listening to the melodies and the phrasing, and then creating a part from that instead of just automatically going for the chords.
Yeah.
And of those things, to me, the thing that's always the driving factor for me to come up with a part that's completely tailored to the song is phrasing. I mean, I'm a big phrasing fan when it comes to lyrics and melody. Mm-hmm. I'm more than lyrics. I mean, phrasing to me is more important than lyrics. I mean, I think like if you have a song and there's a lyric that's so important to the song that you have to awkwardly phrase it to get it in the song, I think it should be a poem. I don't think it should be a song. And I think, I think a lot of like dumb lyrics can get passed through really brilliant phrasing. So that coming from a guitar, that's my thing too. You know what I mean? It's like phrasing is a big thing. How is the phrasing of the lyrics on the chorus or something like that? So maybe I'm going to copy that or play off of it or push and pull, that's kind of my general thought on that is just like being very specific for the song and just trying to come up with a part that the song deserves, give it the kind of credit that it deserves instead of just like immediately either playing something you want to play because it's kind of technical and you get to do this fast thing or something like that, or come up with something that fits a song. And maybe that is something that's fast. Maybe it is something that's technical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my take. Let's hear yours.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. I mean, my idea of serving the song is exactly what you said, just being thoughtful about how your parts fit into the song in terms of, well, just what you said, like how does it fit into the song? Like, and sometimes, like you're saying, I think the intent can be, we hear the end result, and maybe, for instance, on Jump, maybe Eddie tried a few different takes of the lead and they, you know what I mean? Or maybe he did one take and they said, that's great, do it.
Right.
But I like it when also sometimes artists aren't the best judges of what is serving a song or what's good in a song or if that part works. For instance, I'm going to reference that Mike Campbell book because he said that on American Girl, that the outro where he's doing that cool riff, you know what I mean? The one we all know, right?
Right.
So that was a placeholder essentially for him. And he said, I'll think of something better, later. And Tom Petty's like, no, you won't. That's perfect. That's good.
Right.
That's great. And so, and I think it's a killer lick too, because it fits, it goes along with the chord progression that's going on really well. But the flourishes though also set it off a little bit where it's kind of driving the outro of the song, which is really cool. And so I think, from my definition of serving a song, I think it totally serves a song. But it goes to show that sometimes artists aren't the best judge of whether or not their part is serving the song. Their intent.
You mean the guitar player who's saying no, like I don't think that's right, but somebody else.
Exactly.
I agree with that, and that's really hard, and that's was something I was going to talk about. But go ahead.
Yeah, and so I just find that fascinating because sometimes it takes a third party or another band member to say no, that's killer and it sounds great in the song. And also I think Tom Petty was very much serving the song because he was a songwriter and the leader of the band. So if you're getting that feedback from him, that's a good indication that that part is doing its job. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could just talk about like serving a song through just that whole band's career. I mean, take Breakdown. I mean, that little the melody in the beginning where it's just this kind of hushed, like kind of bluesy, moody melody. It just fits so well with Petty's vocals when he comes in. It's just like he's kind of whispering, it's kind of hushed, and it just sets up this mood, this snaky mood. And I said this about, guitar players that I like, and I think it's really great. And he does that a lot, is when you can walk away from a song and you have the melody to the guitar part. And I'm not just talking solo, I'm talking like things, within the song, and it's stuck in your head, but you don't lose the song. I mean, you still have the song, it becomes part of it. And that's what I think is an example of serving the song. And yeah, that thing that you said is really super important because I went through a period not too long ago where I didn't trust myself at all. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I second guessed myself, and I'm kind of a perfectionist sometimes and an
Mhm.
overthinker. But yeah, being able to, kind of maybe trust yourself sometimes. There are cases when someone would say, that sounds great. That's not, that's good enough. And someone says, no, I think I have a better one. And they do a better
Yeah.
one. And it's the one that ends up on the record. And it's like amazing. It's even more
Yeah.
amazing than the other one. So
Yeah.
that happens too. So it's kind of it's a juggling act, just, to learn how to trust yourself, but learn how to not overplay and learn how to, for me, again, going back to what I think about it is I do a lot of playing around the vocals. You know what I mean? I don't play
Mhm.
a lot of chords in the song. A lot of times I'm playing like a lot of
Yeah.
broken chords, partial chords, but I also listen to the vocal lines. And sometimes I'll do like, a call and response thing, or sometimes I'll push something into the vocal to lift a vocal there. And you have to be really careful because, when I didn't trust myself, I'm thinking, well, you're just, you don't want to step all over the vocals, which you
Yeah.
don't do. But if I trust myself, I hear what's going on. I'm not stepping over. I'm like extending the melody or, playing off the melody or pushing something into the melody to pick it up. And there are times when I will play over vocals, not over them, but with them, where
Yeah.
my guitar is, playing along with the vocal, but it supports it. You know what I mean? It's not getting in the way. It's not distracting or anything. And it's hard to do, but that's the kind of playing I like. And I think I got that from listening to a lot of country music and how the guitar and the pedal steel too, how it just kind of, just throughout the song, it just comes in and goes out. And it just kind of makes the song, gives the song a mood and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's what's really, to me, that's really fun about being a guitar player is doing shit like that.
Yeah, and even drums. I think you touched on drums a little bit, but I can't remember the specific reference, but I remember either reading an interview or hearing somebody talk about, might have been one of the Eagles or something, and somebody proposed a demo, to the band, and one of the guys said, "Well, where do the lyrics go?" Right? Because the instrumentation was so full, and so you know what I mean. There's so much
Yeah.
going on. It's like, well, where do the lyrics go, or where does the vocal go? And so that's another indication. It's like, oh shit, yeah, where do the vocals go?
Right.
Is this an instrumental or,
Right.
I think the intent initially was, hey, it's a song that somebody can put lyrics to this thing. So yeah, I think every band member is important and also just not phoning it in so much. And I won't name names, but I've played with other people that working
Steve.
on my brother, no, no.
I
But
don't even know what Steve.
but I played with other people who, and I can be lazy sometimes too, but I remember trying to write certain passages and like we had a song and then it's like, well, this could use a bridge. And it's like, oh, how about just these chords like thrown out? So, well, no, let's think about it a little bit. Let's think about, let's not just throw something in there. And so I think that's an important thing to remember too, is not to just be hasty and try to be thoughtful about how you're, especially if you've got a really great idea and you think it needs something else, well, take your time. Like Tom Petty had that lick for the waiting for months or years, actually. That one part, bum, 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 bum. And he's like, well, what next? And so rather than force it and rush it, he
Right.
waited until the song came together,
Yeah.
and
And that was the
I think,
hardest part for him
yeah, and I
too.
think that's important. What's the hardest
But no,
part?
you're absolutely right, and it's like everything in this life. It's somewhere in the middle because you don't want to rush something,
Yep.
and unless it's something that needs to be rushed, and it's going to sound good if it's rushed. You don't want to overthink, but you don't want to underthink. Overthinking is a byproduct of giving a shit about a song.
Yeah,
So you just have
exactly.
to learn how to balance that and not get too, to the point of where you just take all the joy out of it, or you just, take all the edge out of it. But
Yeah.
I usually know for myself when I hear like just even like an acoustic guitar and a voice singing a song or something on an iPhone or something, my brain starts going to places where, things that I can do. And some of them I don't know until I start playing along with it. And I'll start with the chords. I'll start playing the chords
Yeah.
and I'll start, listening to the words and looking for things and feeling where things can fit to kind of support or, play off of it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I've been called, overthinking and stuff before. And I get that, it's interesting because you'll hear a lot of times, like, when someone's like making a record, just go in there like who's good doing, and Zen Arcade, just bang it out in like a few days or something like that. And that's great for some stuff. And some stuff really
Right.
works like that.
Right.
But that's really not serving the song either, because,
No.
it depends what are the songs, and some of that takes more and some of that this is kind of adjacent to this. I don't know if it's even related, but I'm always fascinated with younger generations take on like music that I know and that I've known growing up. Some YouTube video of some Gen Zer is reacting to the first Boston record. And what he said was so funny because the first that he said when he started listening to it, he's like, oh my God, this sounds so modern. And
Wow.
then the next thing that he said was, I can't believe that this was done in someone's basement. And those two things I think are exactly opposite to what I think. First of all, I mean, when you say modern, do you mean like you could go in this record store and get a band that just released a record that sounds like this? Because you fucking can't.
Right.
So I don't really, maybe he didn't know there was like microphones back then or something. I don't know what he meant by modern. It'd be good to find out what it was.
Right.
And the other thing is, to me, as great as that record is, and I do think it's great, it sounds really good. That sounds like somebody recorded in his basement. The parts do because they're perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every harmony, everything is perfect. He just played that until he got that to the point where he wanted. Right. He made a classic, record for all time. It's a great record. But that's a case where, yes, we need to overthink here because this is what the process for this particular record is. That record was, just, kind of like a homemade record that just sold billions of copies.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. So I guess that is related because that's a case of, yes, we're going to overthink here. And, and am I wrong? Are there records that sound with that kind of drum sound, that compressed thing? I can't think of anybody
I don't think so. I mean, I think it sounds of its time, actually. Right. And when I say that, I don't mean, I think, yeah, it doesn't sound dated to me, I guess. You know what I mean? Like,
it sounds like this. It sounds like this 70s.
Some of it does.
I mean, but,
But in terms of, I guess my sonically, it doesn't sound dated to me. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't.
No, you're right. I was just listening to it. I was listening to 1976 records all day today. It doesn't sound dated, but it sounds of its age. To me, it doesn't sound modern. Other than, maybe it's this too. I would love to talk to this person, just pick his brains where he's coming from. But that every single gear company in the world, recording gear company, like music instrument gear company, is trying to sound like that. They have all these plugins and all this other shit to sound like that. So maybe that's where that's coming from. Yeah. But, without the tape, you're not really going to get that. Right. But that's beside the point. That, Tom Scholz probably played 90% of every note and part on that record. So yeah, that is a case of he played for the songs. They were his songs. So I guess and they're brilliant. I mean, that record is really fun to listen to. It really is. A lot going on there. So yeah, this happens a lot with things like hard rock bands or punk rock bands. Just go in and bang it out. That's great sometimes. That's great. And not for everything. Something, one thing you're never going to get is you're never going to get a record that sounds like a live show. They're different things and they should be different things. You know what I mean? You can make high energy records that sound really good and maybe even some live records, but it's not the same thing. It's make a good song listenable when you record it. And so that's, I believe in that. Yes, just go bang it out. Go in and bang it out. If the song is a song that's going to benefit being banged out, and there's lots of them like that. But
and that's a great point that does fit into our topic. Is what's the best way to record this song, whatever song it is, right? Maybe it is if it came to the band easy and it's kind of an up whatever. If it's conducive to that environment, then cool. Yeah, you're serving the song. But I've just seen so many interviews with songwriters and songwriters specifically and musicians where the process of songwriting it's a lot of times it's hard to put a timeline on it, right? Because I mean, like the waiting, that song took a lot of, you could force it, but then what would that song be like if somebody said, Tom, you got to finish this song in a week, finish the damn song. It could be a totally different song. It could be a song that was a throwaway song on the album. You know what I mean? I think oftentimes when songs like that are rushed or there's not a thoughtful approach to it, most of the time it doesn't end up being a better song. Because it has to evolve and the parts have to fit together. And like that song, that's a great fucking song. Like the choruses, the verse, the instrumentation, everything is so great.
It's beautiful. Everything fits in its place.
And so I think, it's tough. And some writers can, they're prolific and they can write a bunch of, good stuff on timelines and stuff. And it's not to say that deadlines are good, but I guess my point is it's like sometimes you cannot rush a song and you end up with this great piece of work that you're proud of, that you didn't rush because you felt you had to finish the song. And yeah, I mean, I've got a song that well, that's kicking around for years now, and I hopefully I'll record it pretty soon. But
You should.
yeah, but anyway, yeah. So I think yeah, and I think to the overthinking thing too. I think you're right. I mean, I think if you're overthinking things, it means you care about the end result. And that's a thoughtful approach to recording, and but there's give and take, it's like, what's the line, like we were talking about before. It's like if you get feedback from somebody, if you get feedback from a band member or an engineer or somebody that says, yeah, that might have not been, let's try it again, or, oh no, you got it. But if you feel like, well, I don't think I did get it, do another take.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Never
And
hurts
then
for
you
that.
can
Yeah.
AB them, and then, but also, you got to have trust in other people too that you're working with enough to feel like, okay, well, maybe they're right, because like I was talking about, like Mike Campbell, like there was like Breakdown, for instance. The original version of that song was 10 minutes long, and it didn't have that guitar lick throughout the song. He did that in the end as he was jamming out the outro. And some other guy in the studio heard that and said, "Stop." He asked if that's the song. And
Well,
so
that's
Tom Petty called the
the
band at
hook.
like 12 midnight or whatever and got him back in the studio and recorded it. And now that song has that
It's the hook, man.
yeah, the hook. So
And I love doing that stuff. That's the stuff that's fun for me to make, like
yeah,
hooks, intros,
yeah,
and outros. Intros and outros are extremely important. I think people like just never really give a lot of intros and outros the right
yeah,
credit. I mean, that can make or break a song. It's like,
yeah,
so, well, we have the whole song. Let's just 1, 2, 3, 4 start it. I mean, the an intro and an exit of a song is super, super important. And that's
yeah,
one that's worth like really putting some time into thinking about and maybe doing something interesting if you can, in my
yes.
opinion.
And a lot of times that's a great point because I've been listening to a ton of recordings, like Beach Boys stuff, and the songs have an intro and then a verse and a chorus, and they have a pre-chorus. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And that's another good point. A lot of times I will listen to songs and I'll think, well, there's an intro, but it doesn't seem as thoughtful as it could have been, and that's just my opinion, right? It's like that's, the peanut gallery chiming in, but I feel the same way. I think if you have a cool intro to a song, and it doesn't even have to be a departure or anything. It could be some little melodic part taking from the song and putting it in the intro in some way that's interesting, that introduces you into the song. And same with outros. But I think a lot of times they're an afterthought, or not even thought of at all. It's like, oh, let's just fade the song. So jam for 10 minutes so we have something to fade out
Right.
to, rather than, yeah. So I agree. I think those things are important too. And again, it's serving the song and what's going to make this song the best it can be. I think that's another reason it's so important to have people in your creative process that are thoughtful and curious and can hear, can take an objectively listen to what's going on and say, oh, maybe it could use this or that, or yeah. And it's just, and because I mean we've all been there too. It's like where maybe sometimes we're not thoughtful enough just because, I don't know, we're tired or lazy or whatever. But I just think it's so, because especially with music, it's like that recording you make, you're going to have to live with that, for the, and we've also read interviews too of artists that have a version of a song that got released that they just can't stand listening to, right? For whatever reason, right? And maybe, it, whatever took place did not serve that song in that person's opinion, right? And now they have to listen to this version of the song that they hate. But yeah, so I think it's really crucial too to be with people that you trust and people that have the same thoughtful approach to creating whatever it is you create. I mean, we're talking about music and guitars and stuff, but whatever you create as a creative person, hopefully you are surrounded with people that are like-minded in trying to make the best thing that you can make. And I think everybody does that, but sometimes, like you're saying, like you listen to an end result and you go, really, that, I don't know. It could have been better, or I don't know.
Yeah. Everything that I've ever done is like that. But I think, one thing that could often get taken for granted, and maybe not, because I think as a guitar player you just gravitate towards things. But I think being like a songwriter probably helps play
Yeah,
for the song for other people's songs. You know what I
that's a
mean?
great point.
I
Yeah,
think, and it helps with phrasing. If I hear a progression of chords and there is no melody, there is no vocal on it, I'm going to hear, I'm going to hear phrasing and I'm hearing melody and stuff like that. So, thinking, especially if you're playing in a band with someone who has similar music coming from the same kind of influences, I think that makes it a little bit easier.
yeah,
Also, yeah, I got really worried one time because I saw some interview with some studio person, and he's just like, it's that whole black and white. When the singer starts singing, stop, don't play anything over it. And I'm like, oh, I do that a couple times. And then I went back and listened to what I was doing. And I was like, I do that because it works. I do that because it
exactly.
became part of the song and it's in there, and it's not, everyone's getting the melody, they're getting the words, they're getting everything else. It's making that line stand out more, or make it just helping deliver the message of the whatever it is. But so yeah, that's again, trust yourself sometimes, because immediately I'm like, oh no, maybe I'm doing something, but that's not how it works. It's not just like, play a bunch of licks and then when the singers stop, that would say, if you played every time they stopped, like the call and response thing is good, but you can do that to death too.
Yeah,
It's just like, it's just knowing where it fits and how it fits is really important. And
yeah.
that's what I strive to learn and get better at and stuff like that.
I think that's a great point. I think if you come from a place of writing songs and trying to write melodies and lyrics and things like that, you do have, hopefully you do have a better understanding of, or it's in your brain a little more about like, oh, what fits together, or how it should go together, or another, like I was reading that book, and Mike Campbell would just write music, right? Like songs instrumentally, no melody or lyrics, and he would just give them to Tom Petty, which kind of blew my mind because like when I write songs, I think of the melody and the lyric, you know what I mean, the whole thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So it was kind of cool actually because it made me think more about like writing music without necessarily thinking, more in depth about like chord progressions or chord changes or verses, choruses, or whatever. So that was kind of cool because like I said, when I write a song, I'll come up with the whole thing eventually.
Right. Usually on acoustic guitar, but yeah, that was really good for me. I want to get back to this because if you remember back in the late summer, fall, I did a bunch of recording. It was all instrumental stuff. It was all
Yeah,
these things, like about 20 little instrumental things. And that really was good practice at coming up with an intro, coming up with a
yeah.
mood, coming up with, verse, chorus, things like that. And it was all no intention of being any lyrics on it. So that's really cool. That's something you should do. You should try that. That's really
I
good.
think I will because it does help you think about like just the instrumentation and how it's structured more more in depth than you know, um, yeah. So it did really make me think about that and think about just writing music without thinking about whether or not lyrics are going to go over this or a melody, just what do the chords sound like together? It just kind of blew my mind because, he said he would write these songs essentially. I mean, not completely finished, but he'd have a chorus, a verse. I mean, the music at least to these parts, right? And so, yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and practicing doing melodies. As I grew as a guitar player, I kind of, because you start out on, it's like, all right, I'm learning rhythm guitar. I learn all the chords. First it's the open chords, and it's the bar chords, and it's like I want to play leads. So you do the blues leads and the boxes and all that stuff, and you learn about the major and the minor scale. And then you start learning about melody. It's like, the voice is singing something there. What if I did something on guitar? And like you find melodies like that and you start using that. And I found that the longer I'm at this, I like start out, I'll just come up with it. Like it may say it's going to be a guitar solo or something. I'll come up with a solo and I'll end up like having like a bunch of bends in there. I'll take all the bends out and just like, not all of them, but I'll take out a lot of them and just do like single notes or slurs. I don't know. It's just different because, it's breaking out of that learning. Like, you got to do this blues thing where you do a couple hammer hours and bend and all this other stuff. And that's still really important, bending and vibrato and stuff. That's your fingerprints, man. But, I'm just been doing this for so long that I plan on doing it as long as I can. So I always like to be moving in some direction, hopefully forward.
Well, I think
So,
that's cool that you just mentioned that because I think even just the way you play parts can have it, they can feel differently, right?
yeah.
So say I have this little lick or this little instrumental guitar part, well, I was bending a note here. Well, what if I slide up to this note instead or whatever? And how does that fit into the song, Because there's tons of cool, thoughtful guitar parts that I'm sure the person thought about, like, the technique. How am I going to apply the technique to this song, right? Like, and make it cool. But in terms of guitar players too, it is a thing where there are these different categories I mean, in my mind anyway, I can't speak for other people, but in my mind, there are different categories of guitar players. And I've kind of run the gamut as I've gotten older, from my early years as a guitar player and being fascinated with fast playing or flashy playing. Um, and as I've gotten older, I put these different guitar people and playing in different categories based on, how I've evolved as a music appreciator or writer or player. A lot of the people that I was kind of drawn to initially, now they're way back on the back burner because I appreciate them for what they do, but it's not necessarily serving songs or anything. It's serving this more athletic kind of competitive vein of music that doesn't appeal to me very much anymore because I've learned over time. I've been exposed to all this different music that's been really crafted and written with melody and lyrics and guitar parts that have, like you and I have marveled at, like Dean Parks and all these great session guitar players who just played tasty, really thoughtful, cool stuff to songs. And so, the shiny objects become less shiny for me anyway, as I've gotten older, so.
Another example of playing for the song in the 70s, and this was kind of a big thing back then because you see it a lot, is if you listen to going back to Boston, listen to Long Time. He must have paid the bass player by the note because it's like one note on that song. And isn't it like Running with the Devil too? Like a one note. There was a lot of one note bass back then. I'm just thinking Tom Schultz must pay by the note and he didn't want to pay that guy.
That's hilarious. I love it. Well, as always, thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate it. We're members of the Ruinous Media Network, and we're on all the streaming services. And check us out at chrisandricktalkguitars.com. And what do you got, Chris?
Thanks for listening, as always.